To start the third part of my Ancient Civilisations lecture series on the decline of the Roman Republic, I'll give you a quote from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. "How many ages hence shall this our lofty scene be acted over, in states unborn and accents yet unknown?" These lines are spoken in Act 3 after the assassination of the play's namesake, and reference the world historical nature of the event that has just transpired. The murder of Julius Caesar would resonate for millennia after the fact as an unprecedented breach in Roman politics that would plunge the country into civil war. Its legacy changed the course of human history, and the deed sparked centuries of debate about the justification of extra-legal violence to uphold the institution of the law itself, civil responsibility versus personal loyalty, and what gives rulers the right to rule. When Julius Caesar was first elected consul, Rome was faced with serious domestic problems, despite its huge territorial conquests. The main issue was land poverty. Hundreds of acres were in the hands of only a few aristocrats, after smallholders had sold their farms. The former small farmers then often had to work on the land they had previously owned for poverty wages, which forced them to migrate into the city of Rome. This then created a swelling mass of urban poor in the capital. Many soldiers who were returning from the Roman wars of conquest came home to find their lands sold, and so there was massive potential for social unrest. The two Gracchus brothers, who were tribunes of the plebs, representing the non-nobles, proposed a limit on the size of estates, but they were killed by senators. Common soldiers began to fight for their generals and not the Republic. Julius Caesar joined in an alliance with Crassus and Pompey, called the First Triumvirate, and together they made efforts to stabilize political power in Rome. With the help of his allies, Caesar was elected consul for the first time in 59 BC, and he introduced popular land redistribution reforms and lowered taxes. It was traditional that after serving as consul, you would receive a governorship. Caesar was unprecedented in that he received 3 provinces to govern over and the command of 4 legions. During the 10 years he had to wait until he was allowed to stand for consul again, he subdued Gaul, modern-day France, and fought battles in Britain. Caesar's territorial gains were not official though. They had to be verified by the Roman Senate. As both a governor and a general, he was forbidden from entering the city of Rome, and had to seek influence in other ways. Caesar was not allowed to seek office from outside Rome, therefore he bribed senators to vote in his favour. Although the generals were technically above the law, if he returned to the city as a private citizen, he might have to answer for his crimes. By this time, a rivalry had developed between Caesar and Pompey. Like Caesar, Pompey held a governorship and was keen to make a return to Roman politics, but he was a conservative versus Caesar the reformer. Now the rivalry had gone from political to personal. Cicero was a senator who attempted to mediate between the two factions, proposing that Caesar accepted his criminality and be allowed to stand for consul. However, Caesar's close ally, Mark Antony, who was tribune of the plebs, consistently vetoed Cicero's compromises. Even when the Senate voted overwhelmingly in favour of a bill saying that both Caesar and Pompey should resign their posts, this was voided by Antony's veto. As the last attempt to find common ground fell apart, the Senate voted to impose the final act, which could not be vetoed. This invited Pompey to become dictator. In response, Caesar crossed the Rubicon, which was a river marking the boundary into Italy that he was forbidden to encroach on as a general. At this move, he said, "Let the die be cast." Caesar's return to Rome triggered a civil war between him and Pompey, which he won after 4 years of fierce fighting. After the war, Caesar marched through Rome in a triumph to celebrate his victory. This was seen in extremely poor taste, as it celebrated the defeat of a Roman army. In the wake of winning the war, the Senate heaped titles on Caesar, and he took to wearing a toga of royal purple and a crown of laurel. He sat in on all Senate proceedings in a golden chair. Several senators became concerned by the turn of events. They saw Caesar as an egomaniac who went against the principles their ancestors had fought hard to establish. After establishing dominance, Caesar turned from domestic reform to foreign conquest, specifically against Parthia, which is in modern-day Iran. He also had problems in Illyria, modern-day Albania, and therefore concentrated his efforts on planning a massive military campaign to expand and secure Roman territory. As a republic, the citizens of Rome were very wary of kings and lapsing into monarchy. A prophecy, or rumour, circulated that only a king could defeat the Parthians. The plebeians, who were the strongest supporters of Caesar on account of his reforming attitude and military success, offered him a diadem, which he symbolically rejected by saying, "Not a king, but Caesar." Mark Antony, tribune of the plebs, offered him a diadem at the fertility festival of Lupercalia, and he responded by saying that only Jupiter wears the crown of Rome. Soon a conspiracy to assassinate Caesar before he could begin his planned campaign was forged. They killed him at a meeting of the Senate on the Ides of March, the 15th. He received 23 stab wounds, and his death, which was meant to bring about the re-establishing of republican principles, eventually led to the crowning of Octavian as Emperor Augustus in 27 BC. Caesar's last words were, "You too, child?" when he saw his friend Brutus among the conspirators.